So, back in early 2021, the entire financial world was just glued to their screens watching one of the wildest stories in market history unfold. We're talking about a struggling video game store going head-to-head with some of the biggest players on Wall Street. It was a saga fueled by memes, pandemic boredom, and this powerful sense of injustice. So how on earth did this all happen? Let's get into it.
This one comment from a user on the Reddit forum Wall Street Bets, I think it just perfectly nails the vibe of the whole thing. For so many people, this wasn't just about making a quick buck. It was a battle cry. It felt like they were part of this populist movement against a system they were convinced was rigged against them.
To really understand the battle, we first have to meet the Goliath of this story. And it all starts with a company that, honestly, most people had already written off.
I mean, we all know GameStop, right? It was a staple in pretty much every American mall. But by 2020, with gaming all shifting to digital downloads and malls basically becoming ghost towns, its whole business model just felt old. The pandemic, of course, just made things worse, and it really looked like the company's fate was sealed. And seeing this weakness, like sharks smelling blood in the water, some of Wall Street's biggest investors, we're talking huge hedge funds like Melvin Capital, saw a golden opportunity. They decided to bet billions, that's billions with a B, that GameStop stock was going to tank. The strategy they used is called short selling.
Okay, so what even is short selling? Let's break it down real quick. Imagine you borrow a share of a stock and you sell it immediately. The whole plan is to wait for that stock's price to crash, buy it back at the new super low price, return the share you borrowed, and then you just pocket the difference. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. If the stock price goes up instead of down, well, your losses are theoretically infinite. It is a super risky game.
But while the Goliaths of Wall Street were placing all these massive bets, a totally different kind of army was organizing online, and they were getting ready to become the David in this story.
Over on a Reddit forum called r/Wall Street Bets, a place famous for its, let's just say, colorful language and some incredibly risky trading, a completely different idea was taking shape. A whole group of individual investors, retail investors, started to believe that the hedge funds had it all wrong and that GameStop was actually a hidden gem.
And this whole movement had this incredible cast of characters. You had Keith Gill, who went by Roaring Kitty on YouTube and Deep Fucking Value on Reddit. This guy was a financial analyst who was meticulously laying out his case for GameStop for months. Then there was Ryan Cohen, the super successful founder of Chewy, whose major investment gave the whole thing a ton of credibility. And of course, the thousands of everyday investors, armed with stimulus checks and using apps like Robinhood.
And yeah, Keith Gill, who was really the central figure here, he made his feelings crystal clear way before the craze started. In a Reddit post from early 2020, he basically said this wasn't just a good bet, it was an unbelievably overlooked opportunity.
So, the players are on the field, the battle lines are drawn, and what happened next? Well, it was one of the most explosive events the modern market has ever seen.
This number, 140%. This is what lit the fuse. By January of 2021, the short interest in GameStop was a staggering 140% of all its publicly available shares. What does that even mean? It means more shares had been sold short than actually existed for the public to trade. Some shares were being borrowed, shorted, relent, and shorted all over again. The whole thing was a powder keg just waiting for a spark.
This insane level of shorting created the perfect setup for what's called a short squeeze. See, as all these retail investors started buying up the stock, the price started to climb. This forced the short sellers to start buying back shares to cover their bets and stop the bleeding. But all of their buying just threw more fuel on the fire, pushing the stock price even higher in this massive feedback loop.
And the speed of this thing was just unbelievable. The stock started January at about 17 bucks. By January 26th, after Elon Musk just tweets GameStop, it shot up to almost 150. The very next day, it doubled again. At its absolute peak on January 28th, it was trading at over $500 a share before the market even opened. For the short sellers, it was an absolute catastrophe. Melvin Capital lost more than half its value in January alone and needed a multi-billion-dollar bailout just to survive. Citron Research just gave up, announcing they wouldn't publish short-selling reports anymore. The Goliath had been brought to its knees.
But right when it looked like the internet army was celebrating this historic victory, the story takes this massive, super controversial turn. The rules of the game themselves suddenly changed.
So, on the morning of January 28th, At the absolute peak of the squeeze, retail investors are logging into their trading apps, ready to push their advantage, and instead, they just hit a brick wall.
The popular app that a lot of them were using, Robinhood, along with a few other brokerages, just stopped trading. And this is the crucial part that made everyone so angry. They halted buying the stock, but they still allowed people to sell it. This created this completely one-sided pressure, essentially pulling the rug out from under the retail investors and stopping the squeeze dead in its tracks.
Now, the official story from Robinhood's CEO was, well, it was pretty technical. He said that because things were so crazy, the clearinghouses that handled the trades demanded billions in cash as collateral, and Robinhood just didn't have it on hand. But for the millions of people watching, this sounded like a flimsy excuse to protect the big guys on Wall Street.
And the outrage was immediate, and it was everywhere. It wasn't even a partisan thing. You had politicians from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez all the way to Ted Cruz demanding answers and calling for hearings. The widespread feeling was that the free market was only free until the little guy started winning.
So in the days and weeks that followed, that simple story of David versus Goliath had all started to get a lot muddier. And figuring out who actually won this thing, well, it's not so simple. The fallout was just immense, and it was messy. Some hedge funds, like Melvin Capital, they didn't just lose money, they were wiped out, gone for good. The outrage led to CEOs from Robinhood and Citadel getting grilled in Congress. Lawsuits piled up. But the pain wasn't just on Wall Street. So many regular people who jumped in at the peak lost their life savings when the stock eventually crashed.
Because that's the thing, the story wasn't that clean-cut. Yes, some everyday folks made life-changing money, absolutely. But for every one of them, there were a lot of others who got badly burned. And here's the kicker. Other huge Wall Street institutions actually made a killing off all the chaos. They were on the winning side too.
And maybe this quote says it all. It's from an anonymous hedge fund manager speaking after the whole event, and it kind of reveals a harsh truth. Even after this unprecedented moment, after this huge flex of collective power, the underlying attitude on Wall Street, it probably didn't change one bit. To them, David might have gotten in a lucky shot, but Goliath is still winning the war.
And that's really the question we're left with, isn't it? Was this whole thing just a bizarre, one-time fluke, a perfect storm of social media and market weirdness that can never happen again? Or did it finally pull back the curtain for good, exposing some really fundamental questions about fairness and access and whether the system is truly built for everyone? That's the legacy we're all still grappling with today.